And then
And what was on the calendars? And were they just
There were-
general pictures, or?
baby pictures mostly.
Oh.
Every month had a different baby picture on it. Then they switched scenic, but then they had recipes on the back. Naturally, dairy products and things like that. You know.
Sure.
But that was went about until, to believe it or not, I bought my dad out in '75.
Wow.
And I think the last time I bought calendars, well, I quit my retail in '86, and I think that was the last calendar we bought.
Wow. So even up in
And I
'86.
never kept any of them.
I was going to ask you if you had any of them.
I got one or two of them. In fact, a guy came knocking on my door not too long ago, 4 or 5 months ago, and they were cleaning out his garage down Monterey,
Oh,
and they found it rolled up.
they found the calendar.
Yeah, and I think it was 1947. See, now this is 49, and this Indiana telephone news, and this was a picture, Culver plant, man saves life of fireman, blah, blah, blah. And I, James
And
M.
is that in the gas?
Yeah,
That was in the gas.
that was the gas.
Okay.
This was in a, oh my God, I am ready. I should have read this again.
Now.
Oh, okay, hi there.
We'll edit this. You know, we can edit out the.
Well, as far as I know, my grandfather started this in 1918. He met my grandmother in Florida, Indiana. And on one of his construction jobs, he came through Culver, and he liked it. So Grandma and him came back here. And at one time, they started the dairy. They had a grocery store at the south end of town. All this was at the south end of town. Ice house. And he built this all himself. Now, my grandfather was a man of all trades. I mean, he's a carpenter, a bricklayer, cobbler. He did all these things. But anyway, the dairy started in 1918. And from then on, the store and the rest of things.
Now, what was your grandfather's name?
James Monroe Miller. They called him J.M.
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 Miller. Okay.
That was the name of the dairy, J.M. Miller Dairy. No. From there on, I don't know exactly, I can't remember when the store was built because I wasn't even born then, and I can't remember back. I think that was in the early 30s. But supposedly he had the best meats and the ice cream around. Well, the dairy being right behind him, they had fresh milk, so therefore, best fresh French vanilla ice cream around. People used to come from all around the lake and then buy the little grocery store.
Yeah.
All right, now he sold the business, the milk business, to my father, K.H. Miller, in 1938.
Now, real quick, where was, you said this was all in the south end?
South end.
This is the dairy and the grocery.
And the
Was
grocery.
it just called Miller Grocery?
Yes, Miller's
Okay,
Grocery.
Miller's Grocery.
Uh,
And whereabouts on the south? I mean, I've been told, but I don't recall exactly where that.
Akron and Obispo.
Okay.
I tell you right now, the craft girl,
Okay.
what's her name? Oh my God, I can't think of her name. Shut up. Gail Craft bought my grandfather's place and the garage, that property, strip of property. It runs north and south. She redid the house and brought it back to the original, the woodwork and all that stuff, and it's fantastic, and it really is. The dairy is just a garage now. We'd sold all the parts out of it and everything, the containers.
So it's
the
still
bottles.
standing, what the
But it's-
dairy was
oh yeah, it's
today.
still
It's still standing.
In fact, as far as I know, the dry wells where he died are still there. I don't think they even filled them.
Well, tell me this. Go ahead.
Lila Cooper, I think that's her, I don't know what her married name, her name is now. Lila Coop or something, I think she's remarried. But she owns the ice house, and the grocery store sitting right in front of her. They tore that down. We tore that down in about 65, I think, 63, something like that. That was a grocery store there.
When you say the ice house, I mean, I usually think of Medburn and his ice houses.
Well, Grandpa used to collect the ice in the wintertime to last the milk business through the summer,
Okay.
because we delivered it. They had 4, 5 trucks. We went to, and they start out with a horse and buggy,
Right.
mind you, through town. But then as they expanded, he had route Monterey, Lighters Ford, Winnemac, Bass Lake, Knox, North Judson,
You're kidding.
Burr Oak, and he went all the way to Argus. So you have to keep the milk cool some way.
Right.
Brought the milk up in the wintertime, put it in the ice house. All right?
Okay.
It was sawdust walls and everything, and that's what they used during the wintertime.
So now he didn't harvest the ice himself, or
Yes, he did.
He did, and stored it
Yeah.
then and
At
used
one
it to
time,
keep
he
the
had
milk cool.
18 to 22 people working for him.
Now, okay. So did he deliver to everybody's home? I mean,
Whoever wanted delivery, right, home delivery,
home delivery.
and little grocery stores. And you sell on one of his retail and wholesale.
Oh yeah.
See? A quart of milk retail always is 9 cents, wholesale is 8 cents. Whipping cream. This was before homogenization, before they homogenized, broke all the cream up. This is what these bottles are for. They call them cream top. All right, the indentation.
Mm-hmm.
You'd pick the cream would separate. The cream would be at the top. And when you poured it, the cream
That's
would sit
incredible.
back here. See?
So you'd pour off the.
You'd pour off the cream, whatever, and then it separated.
That's interesting. And it worked.
And it worked. It did work. And then they went to the bubble top, like Grandpa. By that time, my dad owned the dairy, and he didn't want to mess with homogenization at that time, so they just kept with these. And you have to replenish your containers every once in a while. And these he bought, I think, in the late 30s, early 40s. These 3 here.
Okay.
And he changed the name to Miller's Dairy. Naturally, he bought it, but
Right.
he wanted to keep the Miller name. This, they went to square bottles in 50. for 2
Oh,
one.
yeah. Can we
No.
get a better shot of that from without the? There we go. Okay. Now,
Now,
when
he bought the homogenizer about that time too. And there went the cream top. No
Yeah.
more cream, all homogenized.
was that none of that was a law at that time
No.
yet? Okay.
But they started refrigeration also in the trucks in the late 40s. So therefore, the ice, didn't need the ice anymore. But I remember, as a little kid, McFarland used to have an ice house down here.
Hmm.
And we used to come down and pick up the ice from them, because my grandfather quit harvesting the ice. And the ice house that he did have, he converted that into a home. And that's when I remember moving in there when I was about 4 or 5 years old, the family. My sister and I, and then my younger brother.
Into the McFarland Ice House.
No,
Oh.
Miller's ice house.
Oh, okay. So you,
All right, that's
Yeah.
when we started picking up the ice from McFarland. So every
I
night we'd go
see.
down and pick up the ice. They'd
Right.
come in 300-pound blocks. We'd pick up 3, 4, 5, whatever we needed.
yeah.
And then the next morning, when we loaded the trucks, we chipped them up with the old ice pick, laid them in these little trays, and covered the milk with blankets, heavy blankets.
Right.
Retard the melting of it, and then take off. So I grew up with most of all that stuff.
So did you go along on the routes, things like that?
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah.
But that was 7 days a week. I remember going with my dad, I'd say, I was born in 38, about 44, 45. I was just a little, he wouldn't even let me carry more than a pint of milk at the time. And then next year I graduated to a quart. He let me carry a quart at the house and set it on the doorstep.
That's great.
And the older I get, the more I got to carry more, you know.
So that kind of, was it fun as a kid to be able to
Well,
do
yeah,
that?
I
Or was
enjoyed
it?
it very much. I really did. But it got to be a bore after a while because this was a summer thing and on the weekends.
Mhm.
And all the rest of my friends, they didn't have to work.
Right.
And I did.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
And we worked 7 days a week. Holidays, we didn't know holidays off.
Did all your siblings, because you've got 3 brothers?
2 brothers.
2 brothers and 2 sisters.
No.
One time, sorry.
No, I got
I
2
know
brothers
some
and
of
2
them.
sisters.
Yeah, okay.
I have a sister older and a sister's youngest. The 3 boys in between. There's 5 of us.
Okay.
And I was the lucky one. I was the oldest boy, so I got the job. Now, when I was 16, I graduated into driving my own milk route because I had my driver's license.
Mm.
So therefore, when I drove, my brother Mike took over my place, helping my dad.
Right.
All right? But as I told my dad, I wouldn't work on Sundays. And so that's when we did some wheeling and dealing, and we started a 6-day route.
Okay.
A Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday route, and a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday route.
Did he continue offering Sundays?
No.
I mean, people, okay.
No.
People just had to buy extra milk or.
Extra milk.
Yeah.
But we had refrigeration back
By
then.
then.
They can put it in the refrigerator and it lasts.
About what time, what period did most people have refrigeration by, would you say? I mean, 40s, early 40s?
In the 40s, I think most people had their own refrigeration.
Yeah. Okay.
But they didn't have it in trucks up until, well, it was in the early 40s, I think.
Hmm.
I mean, the first truck we had with refrigeration was a 49 Dibco. So that was in 49.
Hmm.
Had plates on the top of it, and you plug it in and the gel would freeze. And it'd last for 12 to 18 hours.
Wow. Yeah.
So exciting.
How long did it take you to, I mean, you got up pretty early, delivered this milk, and
Oh yeah.
spent not most of the day, would you, or really?
Yes.
Delivering the milk?
We'd get up, I remember get up about 4:45, 5 o'clock, start loading that truck right afterwards. We didn't wait for breakfast. We loaded the truck and took off.
Wow.
We usually left the plant about 6. And if we got back by 5 that night, we were very fortunate.
Wow. So, and then, I mean, didn't
was-
most people want their milk? I think of the stereotypical old-fashioned milkman delivering it early in the morning for breakfast, but that isn't really how everybody got their milk.
No,
Okay.
no, not really.
Went out throughout the day.
And it went up through that, yeah, right. Because most of you women didn't work back then.
Oh, yeah, so they could
See,
just...
that really didn't come about. You women working did. When I quit my retail route in '86, I had 3 key rings full that I was putting milk in the refrigerator.
Really?
They'd leave a note on the counter or on the refrigerator, and I'd put whatever they wanted in the refrigerator.
Really?
And
So
it'd lock
that-
up on the way out.
And was that common from the old days? I mean, you
No,
took
the
them
old
on
days
in the
everything
house?
was open. Everything was
Okay.
open.
So whether anybody answered the door or not, the milkman brought in the milk and put it in the fridge.
Right.
That's
Well, we had
incredible.
little boxes also.
Wow.
You know, if we got there too early, they didn't want us coming in. We'd
Leave
put
it on the
milk in
back
box.
step.
Right, right.
So, so it was a daily thing. Did you then collect for that? Not every day, of course, but on a regular basis?
Yeah, weekly, every other week, some monthly accounts. And a lot of people put the milk in the money in the milk bottles. Yeah, put a quarter, 2 quarters in it.
That's
But
great.
milk wasn't $1 a quart then,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
As you said, 9 cents a quart there, you could see on the advertisement.
yeah, that's right.
And that was probably, well, that was back in the early 30s, I think.
This thing.
The advertisement that was, yeah.
Um,
You see, my grandfather, when he got out of the milk business, sold to my father. He went into the boat business,
oh, I didn't know that.
and he made boats
Here in Culver?
in Culver, right at South End, right over the hill from us, down on the lake. At one time, he had 138 to 40 boats that he
So, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. And he, sorry, technical. Give me 1 second to get this
No problem.
situated here.
No problem.
So would you say that was was that a boat house then? Is that what it was considered? Or was it more just his own boat building business? I mean,
His own boat business, his one-man operation, and he rented the boats out. He made the boats, rented them out, and then he sold them also. And I'm trying to think, he sold his boats, his business, except when he quit making the boats. And they used to rent the boats down here in front of the at the end of State Street.
in front of the old Kreitzberger building.
Right.
Okay.
Anderson.
I've heard of that.
And I think Anderson bought his business. He bought his boats.
So, wow, now how many years was he doing the boat building after he left the mill?
Well, he was still doing it when he died in '49. He was killed. There was a little shack, prefab building that he built the boats in. You know where, I'm going to say Crossgrove, you wouldn't know.
I'm familiar with
North Agorda, you know where that street is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's a dead end.
Right.
If you go to the lake, you go down a hill, there was a little peninsula there, just a little deal.
Okay.
That's where he built his little prefab building. He built it. It's
Huh.
tin, and that's where he made his boats. It was railroad property, but they didn't want to mess with him. He's a feisty old man, a little feisty German. He really was. He never bought anything. Of course, he had no bathroom facilities. He'd always go up the hill. Well, it was only a block up the hill. You know, that's where he lived and where the dairy was, and we lived up there by then. So they had no problems with him.
Huh.
And when he died, of course,
Reverted back to the...
whatever.
Yeah.
And someone tried to squat on there and tried to put some, toilet in there and stuff like that. And I don't know whatever happened to it. I really don't. All of a sudden, everything was gone. So the legalities must have got rid of it.
The building was gone
Yeah,
and everything.
The building was gone, everything else.
Wow.
But getting back to the milk business, my father bought him out in '38. And then he quit bottling, processing his milk. So he used to buy them from farmers. He bought the milk, raw milk from the farmers, and pasteurized it, homogenized it, and bottled it, and delivered it. December 31st, 1955 was the last day of bottling.
Really?
And then he started bottling it. He started buying it all packaged in paper cartons.
You say that, I mean, would he big, bulky, would he buy it in bulk that way, or how did that, prepackaged?
Prepackaged.
Individually?
Individually. Pints,
Okay.
half pints.
Was that the demise of these glass bottles then?
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
50?
See, this is the last one.
Okay, and that was what year, 50?
December 31st, 1955 was the last bottle.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was all. In fact, he bought it. It was delivered to him. Producer's Creamery out of South Bend.
Hmm.
And then Producers bought out by Reliable Dairy. And then Reliable Dairy did the bottling. From then on, packaged already brought them down to it every day.
Every day?
Every day.
At what point because I'm assuming there was a point, as we have today, when people began to go buy their own gallon or quart or whatever at the store instead of expecting delivery, individuals. When did that begin to change?
Which I don't think it changed in the 70s when the husband and the wife both started working. But when I quit delivering in 1986, was my last year delivering house to house around this area.
Wow.
And at that time, I had about 150 stops.
Really? Homes, individual homes.
Homes, house to house.
Just in the Culver area?
Yes, just in the Culver area. Yeah.
Amazing. Up to 86.
Right.
Wow. And by then, were you still, were you doing smaller like a quart at a time, or was it?
Most of it was
like a gallon?
was twice a week. I delivered twice a week. And a lot of people got 3-4 gallons at a time.
That's incredible.
Oh yeah, that's a good stuff. Very good stuff.
Did those tend to be people who had been buying milk all their lives?
Oh, yeah,
and were
most of
accustomed to that. Yeah.
And they didn't want to hassle going to the store.
Yeah.
Really, that was another thing too. At one time, there's 3 dairies in Culver.
Yeah. I know you know more about Miller's, but could
Yeah.
you talk about what you know about the others?
I don't know when the others started. I think Cloverleaf I was in the late 30s, early 40s. The gentleman was Ezekiel. And that dairy started for North Star Electric.
Which is Jefferson and Slate.
Right. Okay.
That
and then
building.
he moved. It was too small, so he moved across the street to where Hammer's garage is.
Okay, on the south side
Right.
of the street. Yeah.
And in the late 40s, I remember he became a Borden distributorship. He got out of the bottling business.
Hmm.
And that's when Borden's became in the paper cartons. And it was paper then at the time.
Hmm.
All right, that was Cloverleaf was in business. Let's see. At that time, I think Kennedy had it first. He bought it, and who he bought it from, I have no idea. But Mr. Kennedy bought it, and he sold it to his son-in-law, Pat Hallinan, in the 50s. Span of 5 years, I think it's sold again. And Pat Kennedy closed that building, put the garage, built a home on Cass Street, a big garage, and put a cooler, walk-in cooler in that garage. And he got his delivery there from Borden's.
Hmm.
Now, I bought Cloverleaf Dairy myself in 1964. And my dad was still in business, but the Borden was mostly wholesale, stores, restaurants.
Okay.
My dad was primarily, Miller's Dairy was house to house. He had a few small stores, but most of it was house to house. Now in 1975, I bought my father out,
Mm-hmm.
and combined them. And Dad worked for me. And it was too big. The volume was too big for the cooler, so I had to find out a place to move that was bigger. So I built a big business, big building, and I did. We moved out on 17 and built that cement block building out there and put a walk-in cooler in it.
On 17
North.
Okay, where was that?
About 1,000 feet south of the junction of 10 and 17 up here. On New 17.
South of junction of 10 and 17.
You know where?
That's not where you.
That's where I live now.
Okay, I see. Gotcha.
That's where I live now.
Where you live now, that property. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And as I said, my dad retired. He worked for a couple years for me, and then he retired altogether. And I ran it around. And I had my wife run it, and my sister-in-law. They took turns, they went together and all this. Up until about 80, 81. And I just combined it all. I ran it all myself.
Mm. So it was shrinking.
Yeah, it was
you know,
shrinking.
So you could do it all yourself.
Right.
Wow. And this was your primary. I mean, this was your full time.
Oh yes. Uh-huh.
That was your.
Oh yeah, that was too many hours in a day. We think about it now. We think about it now. We can't figure out where I found the time to move out there, start raising a family, expand the property like we did. And as my wife told me not too long ago, she said, well, you were never inside the house. You were always outside the house doing something. Yard work or working or something, you know.
Yeah.
And I was putting in 14, 15 hours a day. Wow. And then I retired and I still put in 14 hours a day.
Well,
But that was the Cloverleaf Dairy part of it. Lakeview, as a gentleman that worked for Cloverleaf Dairy, he went off on his own in the 40s and put a little plant at where Elizabeth's Gardens is right now.
Which is, what is that, Plymouth Street?
It's Jefferson and...
Jefferson and Plymouth.
Is it Plymouth?
I think it is.
All right.
Yeah.
It was a baker. They bottled milk there up till 51, 52, something like that.
Interesting.
And then that was interesting because when they quit, Reliable Dairy was taking milk to them, and they didn't know what to do with all his customers, so they gave them to Miller's Dairy to take care of. So it was more or less everything shrinking, you know.
Yeah.
But Miller's was the only one. We've had local dairies for years in Culver, and we had a lot of people coming into Culver trying to start up routes and stuff, but they never could cut it.
Never really.
There wasn't enough.
Is this where we're seeing, I mean, it seems like in the paper, maybe it's probably been 10 years now, maybe, but somebody found a bottle, a dairy bottle. Does that ring a bell with you?
Tangies?
Is that who it was that found it? And there's a name on it that nobody seemed to know.
Oh, well, that, no one seems to know. I know, they've asked me about that. No one seemed, they think it was. Personally, I think it was just an advertisement thing. Because I don't remember it, and I can't find anybody that knew anything about it.
The name of the dairy that
The
was
name
on
of the
it.
dairy, and I can't even remember the name.
I can't remember it either.
But I know Tangy Dairy from Logansport came up here, and they started her out around the lake. Didn't last too long.
Huh.
Plymouth Dairy came in from South Bend, from Plymouth rather, and it didn't last too long. There was just too many trying to take too, you don't have so many
Small.
pieces in a pie.
Right.
And they get so small, no one makes a living.
So there really were
So,
three
but
main
major ones.
local ones.
But as far as I can tell, my grandfather started in 1918. He was the first one. The rest of them started in the late 30s and early 40s.
So he was really it until then.
Right.
Just to backtrack to him a little bit.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, because you mentioned, before we get to that, you brought some, like there was a Culver Academy label on one of these. Or where is that? Oh, yeah.
See, they used to buy their milk from the Newman farm. The Newmans would deliver it to them, and then the Academy would pasteurize it, bottle it.
And they actually did that themselves.
Yes, they did that themselves.
Huh.
They used to have milk in pitchers and they sit on the table. That was years ago, and then they started bottling their own and blah, blah, blah.
How long did they bottle their own, do you know?
I don't know, but all I know is I saw Culver Military Academy bottle sell at Plymouth at the Plymouth Armory had an auction. And I don't know where the bottle came from, in one of the estates or something. But it sold for $325. And I thought, well, what am I going to do with all the ones I have? No, I don't have too many, so I kind of guard them.
Yeah.
But I have a set of all, as I say, you see them right here, what the ones that Miller's Dairy had. J.M.
Tripod. This is a
J.M.
complete
Miller,
set.
and then Miller's Dairy, and then Miller, and then...
And we're looking at them in kind of chronological order, right?
Right.
Basically, yeah.
Right. But I was so excited when I found this on eBay, the J.M. Miller, because I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know they had it, that small a container.
That little one.
Right.
Didn't you say you bought that in Pennsylvania or something?
It came out of
somewhere?
Pennsylvania, yes.
They travel, apparently.
Oh, yeah. But then my aunt told me, now my aunt's up there in age now, but she told me a few years ago that my grandfather used to take a case of those out there when he went out to visit relatives. And I imagine he just left it. And I said, well, what did he have in it? And he said, chocolate milk.
Oh.
So that was back in the 20s. Because I don't think they even used them only for a couple of years.
The little ones.
Yeah, the little ones.
Yeah, because you would have sold a larger bottle for people to use
Oh, yeah.
more than a day or more than a few hours.
But see, people didn't drink the quantity of milk they drink now. I mean, people sit down at tables anymore, and they go through a couple, let's say a half gallon, say a family of 4. They'll sit down at a half gallon in say a meal. Well, this milk back then was so rich, you didn't have to drink that much. Really.
That's interesting.
The butterfat content nowadays, I think, is 3.2. Most of this was 4, 4.1, 4.2. That's why you got a lot of cream on it.
So the cream was taken off, but it was still left. There's still more left, is what you're saying,
Right.
before it was
Right.
automated, the processing and all that.
That's true.
Interesting. So people, would you say people drink, I mean, did they drink milk as a drink, or did they usually use it on cereal and things like that, or a little of both back then, or?
Most of it was on cereal, I think, and coffee,
Yeah.
hot chocolate.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that, but I mean, whatever. But see, a lot of people, like in the wintertime, set the milk on the step, and people come out, get it, it froze. You'd have that much cream on it.
Wow.
It would freeze. You'd just pop the cap and away it went. They'd cut the cream off and use that for their coffee, and the rest of it would still be rich milk.
Wow. That's incredible.
We used to, the skim milk, we used to send that back to the farmers to slop the pigs. Now it's high dollar.
So you never sold skim milk?
We never sold skim milk,
Huh.
not to speak of, you know.
The skim milk phenomena, is it a more of a dietary? I mean, people are trying to
Now it
lose
is.
weight. Yeah.
Because of the food. All the processed foods we eat nowadays.
Mhm.
Everything is processed just about. Where do you get your fresh vegetables? You know,
Yeah, that's right.
nobody cooks anymore. They don't, and when I mean cook, I mean start from scratch and make a meal. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's all in a box or a can.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Isn't it wonderful? Life is wonderful.
Well, I did want to backtrack to your grandfather. This is sort of a morbid subject, but that was quite a story when he passed away.
Oh, yes, right.
Um,
Well, see, they had a dry well. They had 3 of them, 4 of them. What I meant by dry well, when they cleaned the tanks and everything else, all this water, soapy water and things, would flow into these dry wells. And then they'd disappear, you know. Well, they'd get scum on them. And the scum would be crystal, it would become hard. It would say so many, a month or two, and then you have to clean them out. Well, you're supposed to, and my father always told him, and he knew better, take the lid off and let it set for 6 hours. Well, he let it set for an hour, and that wasn't long enough. He went down and the gas killed him right away.
Just that quick.
But the Thomas boy that was with him, he thought he had a heart attack. So he went down to the well, in the well to get him. Well, he killed over with the gas. But that time the firemen started coming. Well, I remember Oscar Booker, they tied a rope to him. And he went down, passed out, and they brought him right back up again. And they revived him. But I was told all this. I mean, I don't know it was the gospel. Because at the time, it was happening in July, I was over in Bass Lake on the route with my dad. Now, I was 11 years old. And I remember a gentleman coming over and telling Dad he had to get home and he'd take over the route. Well, I'm the one that knew the route. 11 years old, I knew the stops. So I finished the route with this other gentleman driving the truck, and Dad came home to the accident.
What year was this?
That was in 49.
Hold this up, just sort of. That's the pilot on it, right? That was in July 49, huh?
And this paper came out July 7th. So let's see, when did... Okay. Wednesday afternoon, so probably the 6th, July 6th. Let's see.
Yeah. And, wow.
And the kid that died with him, Walter Thomas, he's 22. He just got out of the service. Went through the war and not a scratch, and then comes home and
That's how, yeah. How old was your grandfather by then? I mean,
he's 49. No, he's, oh my gosh. 50, really don't know.
And had he reached he wasn't elderly yet.
Well, to me, he always was an old man.
Yeah, right.
Really. And it doesn't say it here.
Hmm.
That's funny.
Must have had an obituary somewhere.
Yeah.
Huh. So that was.
But it says here that I just had a glance over and saw it. He's lived in Culver since 1909, with the exception of a few years in South Bend. He was born in Pennsylvania. Started Miller's Dairy in 1920, which 18. They've got a few things wrong here, but that's all right. Well, if he came in 49, he was in his 60s, but I don't know how close.
Okay.
I'm thinking 68, but
Wow.
I don't know. But I know he was building boats at the time.
Hmm. It must have been quite a shock. I mean, just
Oh yeah.
surprising.
I mean, I think it surprised everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're not the first person that's told me about it, so it obviously left
It was
impressions.
a big deal. 49. Yeah, I remember that. That's all they talked about for months afterwards.
What became of the sewer thing? I mean, it
Well, we
continued.
still used it.
Mhm.
We were still processing milk up, as I said, up till 56 was the beginning. We never used it after that.
Mhm.
And one of the men that used to work for my grandfather, and he continued to work for my father, Raymond McCarthy, he always had flower gardens down there. There's always tons of flowers all over that corner, one whole corner. And the original wall is still there, all the way around the property. He owned a big square on the end, you know. Well, 2 streets. He
Yeah.
owned it all.
Wow.
So, in fact, I had to laugh. My brother bought it, Larry, and I think the year after he moved, they finally put asphalt up Akron Street. It was a street all along, but it was just a dirt road, dirt alley, we called it. But it did become a street, and he paved it. And that was, I think it was in the 60s or 70s,
Oh,
in the
wow.
70s. I
It's
thought, oh my God,
amazing,
Yeah,
huh?
it is. And there's some streets in Culver still not paved.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So I don't know.
So, go ahead.
And I think my grandfather he helped lay some of the brick streets in Culver. I've always heard that from my aunts. So
Some of which are still.
some are still there.
Yeah.
And they can all be perfect streets if they go back and fix them the way they should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of I see Main Street's, it's still there, I think, the brick.
Oh,
It's just
underneath,
paved,
yeah.
paved over. So by the 70s then, all these dairies were consolidated. You pretty much had them, is that right? Mixing up my dates,
Yes, right.
And then by 86, I mean, did you mainly leave the route because you were just retiring, or was it just that
I
the
just
business
couldn't.
wasn't?
Well, the thing is, I didn't have the time. I went mostly for wholesale, schools and restaurants and stores. House to house, I just didn't have the time, and I bought a big. In '86, I bought a bigger truck, and financially, you just couldn't deliver off of a big truck. I did for a year, but you couldn't really. You wouldn't get paid.
Hmm.
So that's when I gave up the retail business. And then finally in 1999 I gave up the ship. I just got tired. I figured I've been in this milk business for 60 years myself. You know, really, I felt like it, but it was only about 50 when I got back to it, 52 years.
It's incredible,
Yeah.
though.
Oh yeah. But I know my grandfather started off with horse and buggy.
What's funny, earlier, Martha Ryman happened to come in. I don't know if you know her, but she was I told her I was going to interview you, because we're talking about interviews. And she said she remembers she lived on Forest, and she remembers the horse.
Oh yeah.
With it. It was a gray horse with a buggy tied to it, and it would stand there on Forest while the milk was being delivered. And she was a little girl.
And they dipped it out. Ask her if she remembered them dipping it out. in a container and then bringing it up and
Huh.
whatever.
They dipped it. Would they have big?
They had 10-gallon cans they carried the milk in, 5 or 10-gallon cans.
Dipped it into small bottles and
Yeah.
delivered it.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. But at one time, I talked to different ones around town, and it seemed like everyone worked for my father or my grandfather at one time or another. Red Kowach, Jack Kowach, oh my God, if I'd said that, I could think of him. Bob Kultice.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, they all. As I say, he hired a lot of people through the years. Times go by.
That's incredible. Well, because he had the plant and the store and the delivery and the route. And
Right.
you said they got, before the Borden thing took over, they got the milk from local dairies. I mean, I mean, I know Newman was a big big.
He was the feed. Produced all the milk for the
I shouldn't
academies.
say dairies, but farms.
Yeah.
But there were obviously others. Just so he.
Or small dairy farms, right? Small.
Okay.
Maybe 8, 10 cows, 15 cows. And that's where we picked up our milk. Joyce Plant, her dad, Maxwell, he drove the truck that picked up, he worked for my father and my grandfather. And he drove one of the trucks that picked up the milk from the farmers and brought it into the plant where they processed it. But I think he had 15, 20 farmers that he picked milk up from.
So that was another route in and of itself.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That was, they dip it out, they put it in the 5-gallon containers, 10-gallon containers. Oh, I used to get so mad when the farmers used to let their run. Every once in a while the cows would get off into the wild onions and it'd taint.
Yeah.
And if you didn't catch it before you dumped it into the pasteurizer, you'd taint the whole batch. It wasn't bad, but it was that onion flavor, onion taste, smell. Oh, it wouldn't hurt you or anything, but it was just the idea of it.
Yeah.
You used to get some doggone bad. But tons and tons of these things washed, I couldn't believe it.
You got some of them back, you said, so that you guys could recycle
Oh yeah.
some of them.
Oh yeah, you just kept on picking them up and recycling.
Oh, okay. So people left them
Oh
out
yeah.
generally.
Oh yes. Oh sure. Oh yeah. But you have to wash those every day.
That was a whole job in and of itself too.
Right, right.
It's incredible.
We used to have brushes on the end of these and small motors. Brushes. Dip these things in water, soapy water. Brushes, clean them,
Wow.
dip them out, clean them,
Huh.
and you had rinse water. Oh, you did this all by hand.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful day in 1943, I think it was, 44. We got the first bottler that washed the bottles. Turn them upside down. I think there's 5 on a row around the tremendous belt. In the washing fluid underneath, the jet water would spray up in through here, and the pressure of it would clean all the gunk out of it. And by the time it got around to the finish, they were all clean and dried, and you'd put them in the cases.
Yeah, that must have been a big.
And from the cases, they'd wheel them over to the bottler. And then you'd put them on a conveyor belt, and they'd go through the bottler, and then put the cap on it. Oh, it was an impressive thing. It really was impressive.
I can just imagine.
Yeah, back then. And my grandfather set this all up himself.
And he
So.
had to buy these machines from
Oh yes. Oh,
someplace.
yeah. What else? What about the dairy? What else you want to know?
Well, that's a good. Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't know what else to add.
That's what I was trying to think.
In fact, there's still places in the United States where they do have house-to-house delivery. They still do.
Those tend to be cities or smaller towns.
Small suburban areas of cities. Yeah.
Okay.
Where maybe the husband's got a big enough income that the mother stays home and raises the children, so therefore they have the milkman.
Interesting.
New York is a good place. There's a couple of suburbs out there, but I don't think there's a whole lot of them.
in the heyday of home delivery of milk, was grocery delivery in a community like this, was that going on? Or not so much?
Well, it went on, but I don't think it was so much. I think, I know we used to deliver groceries at from Grandpa's store, but that was for homebound people that couldn't get out. They'd call up and then we'd deliver, just as a courtesy. And I think a few of the other smaller stores did it. I know one of the stores on the east side of the lake, they used to have 2 of them over there. And they did the same thing. But I think that was a different store. People paid for it. They wanted to deliver.
As you, excuse me, you recall these years of, excuse me, edit that out. Do you recall these years of, delivering, working in that business? I mean, are there things that, and I know this is something that, this is a lot to ask on a moment's notice, but are there incidents that stick out in your mind? I mean, just funny things, odd things that would happen or that happened? Stories that...
Well, these aren't odd things, but they're funny. I mean, I'd have notes. Please put some milk down for the dog. Or, if the cat bowl is empty, please feed her. Really, I mean, I had one little lady that she was working at the time, and she'd ask me every once in a while to turn the oven on at 300 degrees or 350. And it'd be warmed up by the time I would get there, say at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she'd be home by 4. Well, by the time she got home, the oven would be ready. She could put her dinner in there. Just goofy things, like that. Weird things. But other than that, no. I've had people ask me if I'd pick up things from the grocery store for them and bring it the next time. Little old ladies and things that couldn't get out. It was getting towards the end of the round.
That makes me, that's something I was going to ask earlier, with the whole homogenization processing, when that came, what period did that come in to prominence?
Late 40s, early 50s.
And
it came in more or less with the paper cartons. They all came in more or less the same time. And
you guys didn't do it for a long time.
We did homogenize it. We did buy a homogenizer at the time. Now I think Dad bought that in 1950, 49 or 50. And he wouldn't buy a paper machine. Back then it was about $50,000 to start one of them. And he couldn't see it. Which, thank goodness. But he did have paper. He bought quarts that were in the cone. Have you seen those?
Oh, I have.
Round bottom like this, and they went cylindrical, they went up.
Huh. Paper.
It was a paper, waxed paper type thing. And he had those. But I think he finally quit those because he hated them. Really did hate them. Which I don't blame him. I think they left a taste, a paraffin wax taste to your mouth and all that,
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. And then they finally, I think maybe in the middle 50s, they started going about with a good paper carton. It was waxed. It was plastic. Then they plastic coated it. And then they went from the plastic coated papers right into the plastic itself, the plastic half gallons.
They have today.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a difference in taste between glass and plastic today? Not much.
Today, no, I would say no. Because of the plastic, I mean, they've got it down to science now. But the difference in milk taste, oh yes. Oh yeah.
Just in general?
Yes,
milk
in
taste.
general.
Now
It's so thin. But we don't need, the American people, we don't need the fat in our system. The butterfat, we really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't buy good ice cream anymore. It's hard to find good ice cream. And if you find it, they don't want you, they suggest you don't eat it because it's not good for you. Because one serving is a quarter cup. Well, who can stop at 1/4 of a cup? I mean, that's only 4 ounces.
Yeah.
I mean.
That's
okay.
true. It's true.
Yeah.
Oh.
But that's the same with anything anymore. I mean, everybody eats too much of everything.
Yeah.
If you look at the serving size on all your cans and stuff, it's, well, like your pop. I mean, remember the 6-ounce bottles?
Mhm.
That was a serving size.
Yeah.
Now they buy 20-ounce bottles. I think these 20-ounce bottles. Like, well, I used to be able to turn a quart of milk. I used to drink 2 or 3 of these a day. But I was working it off then.
Mhm.
Now, if I did that, my guys, I'd blossom out like, which I have too every now anyway.
Well, it is easy to drink it. We drink milk at the house,
Oh, yeah.
and it's easy,
It is
to
easy.
drink it as a
Yeah.
thirst quencher.
But I know those half pints, I used to drink 3 or 4 of those at a sitting, never thought too much about it. And that's a quart. You know, drink 4 half pints, and that's a quart right there.
Right.
32 ounces.
Wow. So
My wife gets upset with me today because I opened a can of pop, which I'm not supposed to have anyway. But I buy the diet pop. Now I'll drink the whole thing down. And that's 12 ounces. Well, that's too much. That's too much. 6 ounces is fine. But if you leave that set in the can overnight, it's no good the next day. All the fizz is gone.
That's true.
So therefore you drink it all.
You drink it. Yeah,
Right?
you do. That's right.
Just like anything.
Hmm. Well, with the homogenization, before, I mean, now it's a law,
Right.
right? But before that was the case. And
Well, I don't know whether
was
it's a
it
lot of homogenize. You have to pasteurize it.
Pasteurize. Okay, that's the difference.
Yeah.
That's
heating
what
it.
I guess that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, we always did that.
You always did that.
Oh, yes.
Was that common practice in
Yes.
all dairy? Okay.
Yeah, you always
Okay. And the
pasteurize.
homogenized more was just.
Homogenization broke the butter fat up so small it would form again, would,
Yeah.
collect itself.
Okay.
So therefore all the fat just swirl around in
Okay.
suspension.
Okay. So the pasteurization is what I
That's-
was thinking.
Yeah,
and
that
that's
kills the
what's-
bacteria.
Was that hasn't been law, or what? It was just normal practice, or was it always the law you had to do that?
Well, I remember it always being the law you had to do it,
Okay.
because you couldn't sell raw milk.
Okay.
Raw milk is right from the cow, that would be
Yeah.
considered raw milk.
I hear people's stories about how good that tasted raw, but
Well, yes, but the thing is, if the butter fat's left in it, all milk is good.
it tastes good,
Yeah.
even if it's pasteurized.
Right.
Yeah.
So you take the butter. When they started modernization, they started stripping everything out of the milk and then putting it back in, like vitamin D and all this stuff,
Oh, yeah.
But they take the skim milk, they want to thin it out. Take the skim milk and they sell the skim milk separate. They take the cream out for the ice cream, and they just started stripping the milk,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore you have much left. 3.2 butter fat is what you call great milk. I don't think. Not when you use a 4.2, 4.4. That's what ours used to be.
So if a person goes and buys a vitamin D milk, you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? Is that closer to what it would have tasted like?
No, it's still stripped down.
Really?
Oh yeah. Vitamin D is just milk, but
Well,
they add more vitamin D.
Is
to
it? See, I'm thinking, what's the milk that? Isn't there a milk higher than 2%?
Whole milk?
Whole milk.
Whole milk they call
Okay.
whole milk.
And that's closer
there's-
to what?
It's closer, but that's 3.2%.
That's still 3.3. Okay.
Yeah, that's the minimum. Whole milk should be minimum 3.2% butter fat.
Okay.
Then you get your 2%, and then you have 1%, and then you have skim milk. Skim milk's no butter fat. 1%'s got 1% butter fat,
Okay.
and 2% is 2% butter fat.
Right.
Now your half and half, it's half and half. 14%, I think, is butter fat. Your whipping cream is more like, I'm thinking 28%.
And did you guys always? I mean, I know you talked. There's the creamer bottles, but did you guys primarily just sell milk, or did you also package and bottle?
Chocolate milk, buttermilk.
Okay.
My grandfather had the best buttermilk because he put butter in it. He had butter flakes. Oh, it was good.
Yeah, I did.
And we bottled orange juice.
Oh.
We made from concentrate.
Huh.
We had an orange aid.
Did you have your name label and everything on there?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Each cap, each one of these little, see like your milk caps, we had buttermilk, we had skim milk, chocolate milk, orangeade, orange juice, half and half, coffee cream. Coffee cream was more than half and half and less than whipping cream. And we had whipping cream.
It's amazing to me, these were things that people bought on a daily basis, but it's so hard to find the bottles now. I mean, they turn up.
Oh yeah, sooner or later.
They turn up, but surprisingly there aren't more artifacts of that, more bottles, more. Maybe I suppose people just took them for granted. And
Right. I saw one of these bottles sell on the internet within the last month for $64.
it's incredible.
I'm thinking, okay.
Is it mostly local people with the memory
No.
of it, or is it just collectors of milk bottles?
Just collectors of milk bottles, collectors.
Mm.
These are worth a fortune to me because they're history of our family. But as I say, well, you know, it must be kind of stupid because I paid $152. Well, with getting it through the mail, I think it cost me $159.
This one here.
Yeah, for that there.
There we go.
And that was my grandfather's. Now that bottle there is at least, I would say, 70 to 80 years old.
Wow.
But there's people around that don't even know J.M. Miller. They didn't know anything about him.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have dairy, they don't Culver. It's just like the Academy bottle. Now 2 alumni got in a tizzy about this. And that's why it went up to $325. Now you know yourself, if you look on eBay, Culver Military Academy, that stuff is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
They've got dishes on there now that out 1928 to 32, set dishes 8. The going rate is about $14,400.
I watched it. We were at the Academy auction a couple weeks ago and watched it go for, I think it was $14,000 for a
Was it?
set.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was over 10, I know. It was incredible. Yeah.
But when it costs you $20,000 to $30,000 a year to go to school there,
Yeah.
it's
There
whatever
you
you
go.
want to pay. Really.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's your memento.
Yeah.
Any other dairy recollections or things you want to add about the dairy?
Well, I'm just glad I didn't live in the horse and buggy days.
You know what Martha told me? She said as a little girl, she saw the horse, and sometimes the wagon would get so heavy, the horse would kind of back, and you'd have to. And she said, I always felt sorry for that horse standing on Forest Place Hill. And
I could tell you some stories about that horse, but you can't put it all print. I mean, I heard from other people, you know, about that horse. A couple of the horses that got by it. But no, it was an exciting time. It really was. There's a lot of people that I met, became friends with, I've known through the years. I grew up personally myself. From the time I was 8 until I was 18, I delivered milk around Bass Lake area, Knox and Bass Lake. And we had drivers taking care of the Culver area, the Winnebago area, the Monterey, and that area. But that was the area I was on for some reason. I don't know what. I just grew up over there. In fact, I learned how to water ski. I learned how to drive a boat, all this stuff at Bass Lake.
oh, rather than here.
Yeah.
Huh.
And some of the friends that I grew up with, they have property over there now. In fact, I had that dinner with one of the boys that taught me him and his brother taught me how to water ski. That was back in '54,
Wow.
just not too long ago.
That's interesting. So that was more your social place
Right,
there.
that was my social place.
You would have spent a lot of time over there, I assume,
Yeah.
up the route. Yeah.
Right, because I was there from, say, we used to hit Bass Lake from the time we got done with Knox, I'm saying about 9:30, 10 o'clock. And I was there until 5 o'clock at night. So I was there a good 8 hours every day. I was 7 days a week.
Hmm.
And the people would come down, they would bring their families down, and families would stay there for the entire summer, and the husband would go back to Chicago and come back on the weekends.
Hmm.
They can't do that now. Very few families will do that because the husband and the wife both are
Both
working now.
work. That's a good point. So, did you, as time went on and the routes shrunk,
Yeah.
you were delivering in Culver more, so that was also part of your,
Oh, sure, right. Yeah, I
Yeah,
delivered
it's-
on this lake for many years,
yeah.
but I was older.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. It,
In fact, I was married then.
okay.
See, the thing is, when I left Culver in, let's see, 56, 57, 58, in 58, and went to St. Joe Rensselaer College.
Okay.
I spent 4 years going to college over there. I'd come back in the summertime, work for that. Then when I got out, graduated in 62, Dad said, would you work for me for a couple of years till you figure out what you want to do? And I said, sure. Well, I had no intentions of staying in Culver. I really didn't. And then Cloverleaf Dairy, Pat Hallinan got on my case for about 6 months trying to sell it to me. Finally, I broke down and bought his house and his business. And he left.